Good morning, everyone, or good evening to our producers. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us to taste with this fantastic panel of producers. Everybody has their wines there, their glasses, so we can do some tasting. Really excited about this Clink Different tasting that we're doing today together. I've done a number of these now, and they've been really, really interesting. This brings together some of the great producers of Bordeaux with some of the great producers of Germany in a very sort of new way of, I think, presenting the wines and looking at these two great and classic wine producing places. And so with that, I'm going to jump into the presentation, and we'll get started here with this tasting. So let me just start by just taking care of a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, you probably already heard that the webinar is being recorded for quality and training purposes, so just to be aware of that. We'd love your interaction throughout the presentation. We really encourage you to ask really any questions you might have from these producers. So anything that's on your mind, please use the chat and not the Q&A. So type your questions into the chat. We'll answer questions throughout. Maybe our panel of experts will get on there and answer your questions directly. And just know that we've also left a few minutes at the end of the hour to answer any remaining questions. And maybe just to get the chat warmed up, we might ask you to type into the chat if you're interested in jumping on and maybe walking through the wine, doing the tasting with the producer. Jump in and say so on the chat so we can get that chat rolling. I'd like to introduce the team of experts, our panel today. With us from Weingut Peter Lauer is actually Florian Lauer. Florian is, of course, in charge of the winery today, and I'd like to ask Florian to maybe say hello to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Florian. And we also have Jean-Jacques Dubourdieu from Clos Floraden. Jean-Jacques, please say hello.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Jean-Jacques is coming to us from the cellar, keeping an eye on those fermentations. All of our producers are here in the middle of harvest, and so we really appreciate their time today. We also have my long-lost cousin, Fritz Becker, is joining us from Weingut Friedrich Becker. Fritz, say hello.
Hey guys, what's up? How are you?
Excellent. And we have Loic Chanfreau. Loic is coming to us from Listract at Chateau Lestage. Loic, would you please say hello?
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. We have August Kessler from the Rheingau. August, please say hello.
Hello, everybody. I send you regards from Germany, Assmannshausen.
Fantastic. And finally, we have Augustin Lecaille from Lillian Ledouis. Augustin, would you please say hello?
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Fantastic. Augustin is coming to us from Saint Estephe today. So I wanted to introduce our agenda here. Just know that these are some topics of conversation that I've selected. I've paired one producer from Germany with one from Bordeaux so we can tackle some of these themes or topics today. But just know that these are really just starting points for conversation. Anything you'd like that's on your mind about the wines we're tasting, about the regions where these wines are coming from, feel free to go in that direction. We don't necessarily have to stick strictly to this agenda, but I did want to introduce the themes or topics that I've come up with today. So we have we'll have Florian Lauer and Jean-Jacques Dubourdieu talk about bringing the landscape into the bottle. With Fritz Becker and Loic Chanfreau, I have this idea. I wanted to ask them about extracting the informations from the skins. I'll explain that in a little bit. And also we have August Kessler and Augustin Lecaille speaking about a vineyard reimagined. So just some sort of general themes to sort of guide our conversation. And of course, we've left a little time at the end for some Q&A. So let's get into the tasting and introduce our first two producers and the first two wines we'll taste. We have Florian Lauer and Jean-Jacques de Bordeaux. And the theme here is bringing the landscape into the bottle. Before we do that, I'm going to show you where these wineries are located on the map. This is the idea here is we're sort of taking a virtual trip to these 6 wineries today. And while we would love to take you there physically, the next best thing I think would be to take you there virtually, and we've done that through Google Maps. So let's find all 6 wineries on this bigger map of France and Germany. Of course, we're talking about in Germany, the very southwest part of Germany, where most of the Anbaugebiete and the most famous wine producing regions of Germany are located. That said, we're very, very far north, and if you can find August Kessler on the map there, that is at the 50th parallel north, so really quite far north in the northern latitude for wine growing. And then in the very southwest of France, now at the 45th parallel, we have our 3 producers from Bordeaux. And let's find on the map first the Weingut Peter Lauer. So we can see a zoom in here of the 3 German producers that we'll be visiting today. Friedrich Becker in the southern part of the Pfalz. We have Kessler in the Rheingau, and then over in the region of the Mosel, we have Weingut Peter Lauer. But Peter Lauer and Florian's winery is located specifically in the region of the Saar, and this is a really special part of the Mosel, where the wines have this incredible intensity of flavor, but also this certain delicacy. They're some of my very favorite wines in the Mosel region. And there's the very famous Eiler Coupe, where Weingut Peter Lauer produces most of their wines. So in the area of Eil, and there's a great shot of Peter Lauer, probably canoeing on the Saar, I would imagine. Let's look for our producer from Bordeaux. We're finding Clos Floridin. So you can see all 3 wineries today are on the left bank of the Garonne River and the Gironde. Where we want to focus our attention is to the Grabe, so south of the city of Bordeaux, specifically the very southern part of the Grabe, where we'll find Clos Floridin. And so you can maybe find a few names that should be really familiar, like Sauternes and Barsac. So we're really talking about the very sort of southern extent of the Grabe region. That's where we'll find the Clos Floridin winery. And we are going to taste 2 wines now, side by side, and maybe discuss this idea of bringing the landscape into the bottle. So the 2 wines we'll be tasting to start are the Peter Lauer Eiler Riesling Senior number 6 and the Clos Floridin Grabe Blanc. So if you want to grab your glasses and your corkscrew and get those wines open, we are going to taste those first. And what I would like to do is have, maybe we'll start with Florian to introduce the wine that we're tasting, maybe tell us a little bit about the region that he produces wines from, and we'll start there. Florian, would you like to introduce the wine?
Yeah, thank you. So the wine, I hope everybody has the wine in the glass right now. I had to learn that we don't have so much time to explain. You showed a fantastic image of the Eiler Coupe, the terroir the slope where this wine was growing, and we didn't see the position of the river on that image, but the river is not directly neighbored to the vineyard. It's the best sites in the Saar Valley where I live. They are in a 90-degree angle to the main axis of the river, and so you have always a part which is close to the water and a part which is far from the water. And this wine here you have in the glass right now had been growing far from the water. So that means the the influence of the, let's say, the water buffers a little bit the temperature always and brings a little bit warmth to the slope. This is not the case. So this is not true for this wine here, because this is more continental, has a little bit higher temperature changings from day to night. And so during the day, it's logically really hot. It's southwest exposed, and you get a lot of sunshine during the afternoon. And then during the night, the temperature is dropping enormously. We are relatively high on the mountains here in the Saar Valley. So where August Kessler is situated, so the Mosel is running down to the Rhine, and the Rheingau logically it's lower from in terms of altitude. So we are high here on 370-meter altitude on the mountains. So it's a little bit cooler here, and the idea is here in the Saar Valley to combine the cool wind with a south exposed slope. And this contradiction, I think, is tasteable in such a wine. You get ripeness, you get fruit. You have a very nice. I think in this wine here, if you smell a little bit into the glass, you have a lot of I would say spices next to the fruit, which is probably peach-like. A little bit peachy, but also a lot of anise, pepper, and a little bit, perhaps a little bit quince, if you want. That are aromas which are relatively classical for such a place, which is not too hot, but very nice balance and gets a lot of sunshine. That is interesting to have a wine, a cool climate wine here, which is not too high in alcohol, only 11.5. Should be on the label. I don't know. Hope so. The idea of this wine, only to tell a short story about the name, because everybody is asking me, why is this wine called Senior? The Senior is not my father. This name goes back to my grandfather, and my grandfather used to drink a bottle of wine every day. Happy man. He went down to a little restaurant which is owned by my family. Was sitting down on the table, and every day a friend or a guest was visiting him, and he was sitting next to him on the table, and my grandfather invited him to wine, and he was asking, what do you like? And he said, oh, I like a dry wine. And he has had his bottle next to the chair, and he poured this wine, and he put the back on the ground, the bottle. And then the second guest or second friend came and was sitting down and joined the two others. And my grandfather asked again, what you like? Oh, I like a fruity one, a little bit more sweeter. Oh, and he said, oh, I have something very good. And he grabbed the same bottle and poured. And both guys, they were discussing, oh, my wine is very good. You should try the dry one. And others say, no. The sweeter here is much better, I think. both had the same wine in the glass. So this is a wine which is dry to off dry in the making. So it's exactly between 13 grams of residual sugar. It makes it quite attractive for both sides
Well, Florian, you do focus on drier styles, and the theme that I picked today was actually credit to you, because this is a quote from you that you're trying to capture the landscape in the bottle. I suppose the style of the wine, the drier style, the spontaneous fermentation that you practice, all of these things come together to sort of capture the terroir. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. Let's say for me, the style which is now represented in this wine is a little bit the sweet spot of the Saar. Yeah, I must say that there are I'm sure there are regions in Germany or regions in the world which are much more famous for bone dry wine, even for bone dry Riesling in Germany. I know a lot of very good producer. For sweeter wines, we are here in Zaberle. I think we know to do it, and the Saar for me is, if you like it in a dry style, it's this dry to off dry version which is presented by this wine. It's the sweet spot because this can express both advantages of the Saar. On the one hand side, the mineral aspect, a little bit that saltiness, that the grip on the tongue. On the other hand, the balance and the fruit. And for me, it's absolutely clear. We have, so if you know the whole portfolio we are producing, that then we only produce Riesling, one grape, and then the range is very large. So the landscape is absolutely responsible for the wine style. This is true if you are on the northern zone of viticulture, because then small angle differences in the exposition to sunlight, in the inclination, proximity to water, or are you more far away? This plays an enormous role on the.
I thought with Kevin's awesome T-shirt there, we should ask for Kevin Stanley's maybe just a few words about your impressions of this wine.
I think it's super classic for the style. I mean, this is, what I think of whenever I think of Mosel Riesling. I think of like that bright, zippy, kind of lemony, like very soft lemony flavor. But then I think of a mixture between that, like on its entry, like on its far left scale. Like I think of a dry to off dry, like even on the dry spectrum, I think of something that's definitely on like that has a little bit of RS just to cover the kind of palate. But that's
excellent.
This is gorgeous.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Jean-Jacques, I wanted to jump over to your wine. And, when we talk about the Grave, most people, they immediately think of the gravelly soils. But this is really the story maybe in the northern part of the Grave. You're in the area in the south, closer to Sauternes and Barsac, and it's really more limestone and limestone with clay. Can you explain how you capture this terroir in the wine that you produce? Introduce your wine, of course.
Thank you. Yes, so Clos Floriden actually is in the Grave region, as you said, but actually, geologically speaking, we are on the Barsac bedrock limestone. So that's why Clos Floriden has a very uncommon style in the Grave, in the well-known Grave style. And that's how the story of Clos Floriden started 40 years ago. So in the Bordeaux landscape, Clos Floriden is kind of UFO because my parents created this estate in '83, starting from scratch, 1 hectare of old Sémillon. Because this village, Pujol-sur-Ciron, 1 century ago, was inside the Sauternes and Barsac appellation. And unfortunately, for many administrative reasons, Pujol doesn't belong anymore to Barsac and Sauternes. But the nice thing is we have an old vineyard of Sémillon on limestone. So 40 years ago, my parents decided to create this clos, which is a real clos. It's between wall of limestone, of course, like in Barsac, with this old plot of Sémillon on limestone. And at the beginning, Clos Floriden was one of the unique estates in Bordeaux producing only white. Now, 40 years after, we are in a modern cellar vinifying red, of course. So from 1 hectare, the estate now represents something like 42 hectares. But we made everything. Here, there was no classification, not even a name, because Floriden is the anagram of my father and mother name. So it's Florence and Denis. So at that time, it was the winery for Sunday for my parents, because they were working in another field. My father was also a professor of enology at the Bordeaux University. My mother was Italian teacher when they get married. So they were working in completely diverse field, even if my father was linked to the wine as well. And little by little, Clos Floriden became a reference in white. Actually, not really a reference, but more a very uncommon style, because in the meantime, there is the limestone, but also a very cold place, because we are in between the Ciron River and also the beginning of the land forest. And the land forest is a bit higher than the vineyard, so all the cool air is coming down in the vineyard. So now with the global warming, things get better, but spring frost during the 80s was a big issue in this estate, because it's really colder. There is, in average, 7 degrees in between the city center of Bordeaux and the Clos Floriden, and we are at 30 minutes by car. So it's a real microclimate who helped us to build a style. And I don't know if now Clos Floriden exists because it's a good wine or because it's different. I think it's more the second solution, because good wine or bad wine has not really a sense. But different wine with its own personality, actually, it's working, and as long as we are able to surprise the consumer, it's mainly the main point. So, yeah, excuse me.
Oh, Jean-Jacques, as you're describing the terroir, the soil, the climate of the place, you can really feel and sense it in the wine. And actually, Lynn Farmer said the same thing. He thought there's like a line from the first wine to the second wine, this real sense of minerality and terroir. Lynn, wasn't that your comment?
Yeah, I was struck in the Riesling especially, but I associate so many Mosel Rieslings with having this floral element, and the minerality I thought really came through Florian. It's a beautiful wine, and that thread of acidity and that kind of crushed wet stone leads right into Jean-Jacques' wine, which is just beautifully balanced. I think it's a different kind of wine, but they're both really gorgeous and highlight that minerality.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Jean-Jacques, this is really, I think both of these wines were perfect examples of where both producers have captured the real essence of the place in the wines, of beautiful expressions. We're going to move on to our second set of wines and our second set of producers. So let me introduce them here, and I'll get this presentation back up on the screen. And just for your information, there's sort of the technical details on the two wines we just tasted together. But let's move on, because I wanted to talk to Fritz Becker and Loïc Chanfreau about extracting the informations from the skins. There's a reason I write it that way. I'll tell you about it in a moment, but let's find our wineries. So first of all, here's once again, the three producers in Southwest Germany, but train your eye to the sort of towards the bottom of the screen. South is where we'll find the Weingut Friedrich Becker. And in fact, we are right on the border with France. Some of the vineyards here are very famously located in France. That's very, very interesting. So here's Fritz and his dad. And Fritz, what's the name of your dog? Hopefully Fritz is there still. And so that's Weingut Friedrich Becker in the Pfalz.
Oh.
Sorry, Fritz, go ahead.
Yeah, the name of the dog? We have,
Yeah.
we have a couple of dogs. I think you're talking about Emil, maybe, right? It's
Exactly.
the famous terrier. We have a couple of them.
Beautiful,
The most famous
beautiful.
one is Emil for sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. And let's locate our producer from Bordeaux. So I mentioned already, all three producers are on the left bank of the Garonne and the Gironde, but we're looking at Les Stages in Listrac. And you'll notice that the winery is located further away from the Gironde. And there's a reason I want to point this out. It's because we usually think of the gravelly soils of the Médoc probably being from the river, but there's another series of gravels, and sometimes you'll read about this in a book or on a text sheet, and they're called Pyrenean gravels. They come from obviously a very different place, all the way from the Pyrenees, 400 kilometers away, many millions of years ago. But a shot of the beautiful Chateau Lestage in Listrac, and the gorgeous, very modern cellar that they have there in Listrac. So the two wines we're going to taste now, side by side, we'll taste the Becker family Pinot Gris. And just one note on that technical sheet, you see 12 to 24 hours of maceration. I just wanted to highlight that because that's kind of the topic I wanted to talk about. And then we'll also taste the wine from Chateau Lestage. And so we'll come back to this screen, so don't worry if you don't grab all the information. At this moment, I want to speak to our producers, and let's jump to Fritz Becker to first introduce the wine we'll be tasting and tell us about your region, where you are specifically.
Yeah, so we are located in the very southwest of Germany, directly on the border to France. To give you a rough direction, we are south of Frankfurt, like 100 miles, and we are like 40 miles north of Strasbourg in Alsace. And like you mentioned before, our winery has more than 75% of the vineyards on actually today's French side of the border. You all know the very moved past of the Alsace region. So it used to be French-German. The border switched a couple of times. And that resulted in the funny fact that today, the family-owned vineyards are mainly on the French side of the border. And since 1955, we are allowed to produce German wine from these grapes grown on the French side. So that's a very special situation that we have here. And actually, my family and I, we live in Alsace, in France, but we are just 400 meters away from the winery, which is on the German side. So over here in the border region, it's quite normal to cross the border every day. And we farm most of our grapes in Alsace, making Pfalz wine from it, so German wine.
And Fritz, we're tasting the Pinot Gris, and there's a tradition of macerating Pinot Gris on the skins already. We see that often in Alsace, for example. Yep. But there's also sort of a trend for this macerating the grapes on the skins, not even necessarily to make an orange wine, but to get more structure and tannin into the wine. Can you tell us about why you produce this Pinot Gris in this way?
Yeah, my intention is to produce wines in a very classical, traditional style. We are very basic with our winemaking. We are very low tech. And the thing of macerating Pinot Gris on the skins is an old story. So my grandfather used to do this. It was very common. And back in the days, these kind of wines were called Tokai Pinot Gris, right? So because the Pinot Gris used to be called Tokaya in Alsace and in the southern Pfalz. And it was quite normal in the old days. And my intention from the beginning, I took over winemaking in the winery 2005 from my father. I'm generation number 7 now, producing wine in the family. And my intention was to go back to the roots, make it as simple and basic as possible. And this is one of the things that my grandfather used to do. So I tried it out, and people seem to like it.
I think your dad is famous for saying that tradition beats trend every time, right?
Right, yeah. Maybe sounds boring, but it's the way it is. I think you can't reinvent the wheel. And winemaking is really like, keep it simple. It's all about the soil. It's all about the vineyard work. Again, it might sound boring, but that's just the way it is, right?
Well, when I say extracting the informations from the skin, there's just a famous winemaker I know from Austria, and he practices this maceration on the skins to produce white wine. But not only is you're extracting a certain amount of flavor, but also this certain structure that I find in this wine. I thought I would ask maybe Casey, I can see you right on the screen if you'd like to give your impressions of this this Pinot Gris.
It's one of the first orange wines I've actually liked. No, it's very clean. It's got beautiful rhubarb, wild strawberry, good acidity, and it's just very pretty.
Fritz, do you describe that as an orange wine, or is it more like a traditional color for a Pinot Gris?
I'm not an orange wine guy, I have to say. So what we do is we do skin contact, right, for a long time. Sometimes with a Pinot Gris up to 4 or 5 days, depending on the vintage and the acidity levels. But I do not ferment the white wines on the skin. It's just about fermenting to extract all the good stuff from the skins. So it's not. I would not consider it like real and orange wine, because as well we use sulfur to produce wine, because we consider sulfur as our good friend in winemaking. That's a big difference to orange wines, maybe.
Yeah, Loic, I wanted to jump over to your wine from Chateau Lestage, and it's sort of the same idea I want to ask you about, because I know you do a lot of micro-vinification, and what I want to get to is how you treat the tannins in the cellar and work with tannins, but maybe I'd ask you first to introduce the wine to us.
Yes, thanks. Chateau Lestage is a 45 family estate. It's located in Listrac, Medoc. As you explained, it's a bit far from the Gironde estuary. So it's a bit colder than the neighbors from Pauillac, Saint-Estèphe, Saint-Julien, and Margaux. But the Chateau Lestage vineyard is on the highest point of the Medoc. It's 45 meters high. So it protects us from the frost. Thanks to that localization, we didn't suffer from the frost for the 2021 vintage. So it's a good advantage for us. About the soil, we have some gravels, as you explained, Pyrenean gravels. So it's more gravels. It's not the same that they have in Pauillac. It's not Gunz gravels, but the subsoil is mostly clay and limestone. So it's very fresh, and we have a big amount of Merlot. For example, in Lestage, for this vintage, is more than 60% Merlot. So the wines we are producing in Lestage are very fruity, and the Cabernet Sauvignon is only 35%. So it's a very small amount regarding the other estates in the Medoc, mostly in the communal appellation. We are in Listrac having a later climate than the other appellations. So we are still harvesting right now, and we have more acidity sometimes. So we are just managing to match this acidity to the right extraction. So we are very focusing on the vinification to extract mostly on the beginning of the vinification when the alcohol is very low, to improve the fruity side of the wine, and to still have some tannins, but very soft tannins that is just well mixed with the acidity to produce just a well-balanced wine.
I actually opened this wine last night to enjoy a glass with dinner, and I was really impressed by the elegance and the freshness. You think 2016 is going to be a pretty powerful concentrated wine, but you've managed to really produce something quite elegant, in my opinion. I thought I might ask, I see that Daniel is tasting, he's at work already, tasting from the cellar. Daniel Bishop, would you mind giving a few impressions of the wine? Oh, I think you're still on mute, Daniel.
Yeah, I thought with the, I was, the 16 vintage, I was thinking that the wine would have this, like powerful, dense style, but I think with the softness with the Merlot and the elegance and the brightness with the acidity, I was really surprised with the wine, and I thought it was very, very beautiful and balanced, and still very fresh, and but still had that good density of fruit with the mineral tones and mineral notes. And I think and it had some structure as well, but not too tannic or too bold for me personally.
Yeah, like the wine, you already mentioned the acidity, but it's really got this great sort of bright lift to it. So really beautiful, beautiful example of 2016 Lee Strack.
Yes, 16 is very, very good vintage. It was very wet 4 seasons until the beginning of June, and then we only had some summer. So the yields were very good, and the tannins were perfectly ripe. About the harvest, I think it was very late too. It was from the first 15 days of October. So it was a very, very special vintage. And yes, as you told, the acidity is just balancing the tannins, and the finish is just on the freshness. It's very long, but not drying the mouth.
Great, excellent. I want to jump to our final 2 wines and final 2 producers of the day, but I'll just once again put that screen up on so I can see the sort of technical information there about the 2 wines. We already mentioned it's quite a high percentage of Merlot for the Médoc at least, but beautiful, both wines, beautiful expressions, and thanks for presenting those, Fritz and Loïc. Our final 2 producers and wines today come from August Kessler and Augustin Lecaille. And my idea about this was a vineyard reimagined, because both August, when he arrived at the winery, and at Lillian Ledouis have been sort of reinvented by restructuring the vineyards and bringing these vineyards to the quality that they are today. So let's find the wineries on the map. First, we'll go to August Kessler. And I already mentioned earlier, this is way up at the 50th parallel north. So it's about as far north in the Northern Hemisphere that we can ripen the wine grape. And we're on the Rhine River in the Rheingau region, quite a small region. It starts at the very right of the map in Main, Hochheim in Main, as you can see there. And it extends all the way to Assmanshausen, where August Kessler is located. It's a very historic and important area for Pinot Noir. So there's probably the Hollenberg. August, you'll confirm that for me.
Yes, it is a Hollenberg.
Yeah, very famous Grand Cru vineyard site, extremely steep, and one of the great Pinot Noir vineyards in Germany. And a quick look at the cellar here at August Kessler. And then we need to find also Chateau Lillian Ledouis. And so we're going to the Médoc once again, but further north and a little closer to the Gironde. We're in Saint-Estèphe. And really, Lillian Ledouis is considered by many one of the rising stars of the Saint-Estèphe appellation. So we can have a quick look at the winery, the chateau, very beautiful, and a glance in the cellar. We've also added this terroir map. I'm sorry it's so small, but I'm going to ask Augustin to explain that in just a moment, what they've been doing with the vineyard. And just a quick look at the technical information. These are the 2 wines we'll be tasting together. So we'll have the Daily August 2019 Pinot Noir from August Kessler and the 2016 Lillian Ledouis from Saint-Estèphe. And I'll be sure to bring that slide back in just a moment. But I want to get to the wines and get to our producers, and starting with August Kessler, please introduce the wine we're tasting, the region and the winery.
Maybe not to the Germans, but to all of you other guys, I might have a very interesting story for you. Here in Assmannshausen, we have a long history in Pinot Noir since monks. In century 14, brought the original clones from Clos de Vougeot and started wine growing at the famous monastery Kloster Eberbach. You guys think on Rheingau and you think on Riesling. That's right, except one village, Assmannshausen, which is growing 100% Pinot. And since 1775, we had a real mix of Pinot Noir, Riesling, Orléans, Silvaner, and Gewürztraminer in the Rheingau. In 1775, when they founded the famous Spätlese at the Schloss Johannisberg, after Karl, the Spätlesereiter, who should have horseback ridden to Fulda to get the allowance from the Abt to start the harvest, but got lost when he fell in love with a beautiful woman and went home way too late. And everything was already rotten. They said, okay, if all the vineyards facing south to the River Rhine on more or less richer soil to bring out botrytis, we will further on plant Riesling only, but leave the Pinot Noir there where it is best at all in Assmannshausen, on the northwestern side of the Rheingau, on the cooler side of the Rheingau, growing Pinot on 100% slate soil facing southwest to the river. Pinot Noirs from us are, as Pinot Noirs should be, cool in character. Mineral driven, but fruit driven as well. Light on the tongue, easy to drink, but long lasting. We are growing these Pinots since centuries. I'm in the third generation only and took over the estate in 1977. 1977 was a damn bad vintage. These days, we did not get the fruits ripe. Germany was sweet for two reasons. First of all, we needed residual sugar to cover the unripeness, to cover the way too high acidity, and to cover the unripe phenols. Second reason was because of World War II, we still had in Germany a huge demand of sweet stuff, sugar, cacao, chocolate, candies. 77, 81, 84, 87, vintages we did not get the fruits ripe. Meanwhile, we feel in paradise, we feel in heaven. We are getting the fruits ripe in every vintage, even in a difficult vintage this year, 2021, with a way too cool April, way too cool May. We got hail on June 7th. Around June 27th, we got a period of 9 weeks rain. It's raining again, but we have the fruits ripe because of pruning that much and to work hard in the vineyards, and we are looking forward to a moderate vintage. This one here, the Daily August 2019, was not my idea. I once got a call while I stayed in Chicago. Mr. Kesseler, can you deal with the name the Daily August? We want to do a Pinot Noir for everyday drinking, easy sipping, daily in restaurants, mainly for private customers. And I agreed totally. And meanwhile, this wine is that successful that it is always sold out. And for example, for the United States, I don't have enough. So, yeah.
Well, August, you were 19 years old when you took over the winery, and I suppose at that time, a lot of the wines of Assmannshausen were going to maybe to the cooperative, or maybe produced in more of a bulk wine fashion, but you've really raised the profile of Pinot Noir from Assmannshausen.
Actually, there was only one estate, the state estate, who sold their wines in bottles. all the other producers sold the wine in bulk. My breakthrough was in 1981. With the vintage 1918, I made a mistake. The mistake was that a malolactic fermentation happened in my wines. That was not common these days because they wanted to create a sweet Pinot Noir and they needed the high acidity. So I offered that special wine to a dealer and asked him for a lot of money. Meanwhile, I got already a lot, namely 5 Deutschmarks per liter for my wine from Assmannshausen, Höllenberg. So I was not shy because of that special wine, and I asked him, Mr. Schwalbach, that was his name, can I get 25 Deutschmarks this year for these barrels? And he called me an idiot, but said, I will buy the whole crop and I give you 20 Deutschmarks. These times I was studying at the university in Geisenheim and raising up the estate, which I started with 2.5 hectares. Meanwhile, we have 33 hectares, and I sold the whole crop and was settled.
August, I think we love hearing these stories because everybody has a smile on their face as we're listening to you. So we love that you're sharing those stories. I can see Gonzalo, you're tasting this wine. Would you mind saying a few words about your impressions of the Daily August?
Yeah, sorry, I'm on my husband's Zoom, but this is Susan Jonathan, and the Daily August.
Hi, Susan.
Hello. It's a beautiful Pinot Noir. I love it. It's very dry finish. It is lending to make me want more. I love the minerality. It's very well balanced, and this is my first time tasting a Pinot Noir from that region. Thank you.
That's great, Susan. That's great. I'm glad we've introduced you to Pinot Noir from Assmannshausen. It's August. You're really responsible for bringing it back to its current glory. So that's awesome. Lillian, I want to introduce the wine from Lillian Lacaille with Augustin Lacaille, Lillian Leduy, and Augustin. I can't see you on my screen right now, but I would like you to introduce the wine we'll be tasting.
Hi, good evening. I hope you can see me now. Jesse, first of all, August, I was born in 1977, so you spoke about it in Bordeaux. It was not a great vintage, but
I'm sorry for that.
I can't wait to try yours. No, but Chateau Lillian-la-Douce is located in Saint-Estèphe, in the north, as you mentioned in the slide, in the north of Bordeaux, on the left bank of Bordeaux, especially in the Médoc region. But very briefly about the quick history about the estate. Chateau Lillian-la-Douce exists since the 16th century. It used to belong to the family of Lafitte Rothschild, in a very well-known estate in Pauillac. And but since then, I'm sure some of you have heard about the 1855 classification in the Médoc, the historical classification. And some estates have done a lot of improvement in knowing a little bit more about their vineyard. And it's the case of Lestage, Chateau Lillian-la-Douce also. And now in this classification, we have a new classification in the Médoc called the Cru Bourgeois. And Chateau Lillian-la-Douce that you are trying now is as Lestage, Cru Bourgeois Exceptional. It is still a family-owned estate. This winery has been acquired by the Lorenzetti family. The family Lorenzetti really fell in love with Chateau Lillian-la-Douce in 2008. And after that, they fell in love with some other wine region of Bordeaux, a little bit more south in Pauillac with Chateau Pédesclos in 2009, a little bit after in Margaux with Chateau d'Isson, where I am right now, and more recently another estate in Saint-Estèphe called Chateau Lafont Rocher. But this family really felt in love with the magic of Bordeaux and the magic of the left bank. It's true that when we speak about Bordeaux, we often speak about the heterogeneity of the soil, because as you might have seen very quickly on the previous slide, we have from 1 meter to another, you can have a drastic change of soil, moving from gravel soil, I mean deep, what we call perro soil, which is deep gravels, or clay or limestone. And according to the soil type we have, of course, we will adapt with the appropriate grape variety. That's the reason why we love to blend grapes in Bordeaux. And but if some of you had the chance to come and visit Bordeaux and the left bank, it's true that when you arrive in Saint-Estèphe, you pass Lafitte Rothschild and you climb the hill. And because Saint-Estèphe is quite with a lot of slopes, it's a beautiful terroir, really right in between the Atlantic Ocean and the magical estuary, the Gironde estuary. The estuary, I mean, Jess, you were talking about Jesse, sorry, you were talking about the 45th parallel and the magic of this magical balance between the in-between between the equator and the North Pole. And the other magic is the estuary, because it's almost like a natural air conditioning, because when it's a little bit cold during winter, thanks to the estuary, we gain few degrees, which allow us, and it has been, we have been lucky this year to not have been impacted by the frost, thanks to few degrees brought by the estuary. And during very warm summer or warm years, like the vintage that you will try now, 2016, you always have a little wind coming from the estuary, which which is also giving a good freshness, bringing good freshness on even warm vintages in the wine. But of course, the freshness is not only is not mainly coming from that, but coming also from the soil we have. When the family Lorenzetti arrived in 2008, Chateau Lilian-Hadouis had 45 hectares. And nowadays, we have now 80 hectares. So that's why probably you choose this topic to speak about Chateau Lilian-Hadouis, because the idea was to improve the quality of our vineyard, the quality of our soil, because in fact we have, as you might have seen again on the previous map, we have some of our plots which are located on gravel, some other plots that are located on clay, because of course when you think about Médoc, when you think about left bank and gravel, you always think about Cabernet Sauvignon, right? Because of course, Cabernet Sauvignon is the king grape in the Médoc. But as you probably know, French, we love exceptions, and Lilian-Hadouis is one of the exceptions, because we have identified that we had pretty interesting clay soil or subsoil sometime, great for Merlot, and that's the reason why at Lilian-Hadouis quite often, in the majority of the vintages since we arrived in 2008, have a majority of Merlot. And the vintage that we choose today, 2016, and Loic spoke about the 2016. It was clearly in Bordeaux, probably a perfect vintage. The mother nature has been extremely generous and close to perfection. And you can see that in the blend of this wine, this Lilian-Hadouis 2016, because the proportion that we have in the wine is more or less at 1%, the same proportion that we have in the vineyard on the field. So this wine is 62% of Merlot, 32% Cabernet Sauvignon, and the rest 6% of Petit Verdot. So 3 different grapes, but a majority of Merlot, which is quite unique. And at the same time, even if 2016 was a beautiful and sunny vintage, you can feel this freshness. It's very charming nose and charming wine, because thanks to the Merlot, which is always bringing a lot of flesh and beautiful small blackberry fruit and raspberry fruit. But at the same time, thanks to the clay we have in the soil and we always have a beautiful freshness, which is bringing balance to the wine, even on a warm vintage like 16.
So by reimagining the Vineyard Augustin, you've acquired more gravel. It's really an interesting idea and approach to improve the wine, to be one of the quote unquote rising stars of Saint Estèphe. It's a really interesting approach. And Kevin, feel free to jump on and just, you wrote a great little tasting note here on this wine. Kevin, would you mind just letting everybody know what you thought about the wine?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, especially when we're talking about the other Bordeaux as well, with very similar breakdown, they like heavy Merlot and then Cabernet and then a little bit of Petit Verdot. This is like super expressive on the nose as far as fruit goes. And then whenever I got to the palate, it was just a whole lot of gravel and minerality. And then that the soft red fruit kind of came bursting in from the Merlot, but it was so well balanced. I was like, I thought it was going to be much more ripe and round on the palate because of the nose, but it was just, yeah, very, very, very gravelly, which is awesome. I love that.
Exactly. We expect Saint Estèphe, Augustin, to be quite tannic sometimes. I mean, you know, that's the classic descriptor. It's got this muscle and tannin, but this just has a great freshness and elegance.
Yeah, but in fact, yes, very often we think about Saint Estèphe being quite rustic in a way, especially when they are young. But they are great wines to keep. Again, today the 2016 is a lovely vintage to try now with thanks again with the Merlot. But you can feel that you are in the Médoc because in the backbone you still have the Cabernet Sauvignon from the Médoc, bringing the structure and the backbone to the wine, which will help the wine to age very well. Also, it's I mean, very often we had the occasion to drink some 89 or 90s, 1990 from Lilian Ladouis, and the wine is aging beautifully. So it's the idea for us is always a question of balance. Making sure that we have the right expression of our terroir every year. Now with the 80 hectares, it's moving to organic. It's also a nice challenge, but it's very interesting to have this kind of patchwork and doing in order to help us to make the best selection every year.
Well, this always happens. The conversation has been fantastic. The tasting has been incredible. We have all really enjoyed tasting these wines. Lots of smiles on our faces, so we're very happy. And this is the end of the hour, so I want to thank first of all the audience for taking the time to taste these wines. We hope you enjoyed the tasting. I think there's a survey that might come to you, so please fill it out so we know how to improve these tastings in the future. And then I have to say a special thanks to our panelists who are tasting with us during harvest and it's dinner time. So I have to say thank you very much to Florian Lauer and Jean-Jacques de Bordeaux, Fritz Becker and Loic Chanfreau, and August Kessler and Augustin Lacaille. Thank you so much for the time. We've all enjoyed tasting with you and learning from you. So with that, everyone, thank you so much. And see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a wonderful further day.
You too. Thank you.